especially when it comes to time versus money and career advancement. And it comes at a cost, right? I got out of the military, and I made the decision not to go straight back into work. Traditional work. I do some stuff on the side, but I'm in control of my calendar. I can, no one is telling me what to do except for me and my wife, which, if you're married, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's another podcast. But I have control of that. But with that, I'm definitely not maximizing my earning potential in my best years for earning, like 40 to 65. And that's not to say that I won't eventually, but the time is more important to me, right? I can look back and see everything my dad missed, my mom missed, and sacrifice being able to be there every afternoon when my kids get off the bus, getting up every morning, cooking them breakfast and helping them out the door, taking them to basketball practice, coaching for my daughter. That's more important to me now than financial gain. Now, what's the cost there is their coffers are not getting filled with college money, right? I got 4 kids. It's enough just to keep them fed on a weekly basis, but it's a sacrifice, right? And to be determined what the impacts of that are later. Hopefully, they will appreciate the time. Welcome to the Leading with Vulnerability podcast. I'm your host, Yuma Barnett. And first, I want to say Happy New Year. Welcome to 2023, everybody. I hope everybody had a great Christmas and New Year and is off and running and having a great start to 2023. So today, it's less of a podcast with a guest, and it's more of an update on kind of what's going to happen here, at least in the beginning of 2023. But I am going to bring up a topic for discussion, and I say discussion because I would love it if some of you would give some feedback down in the comments. Or send me a message or whatever it is about what I'm going to discuss with you all today. But before I get into that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all the loyal listeners that I have and all of my supporters on Patreon that give you that monetary donation every month. I couldn't do this without either one of you. You guys are both, the listeners and my Patreon supporters, you guys are both very important to me and to the community. So I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to what's coming in 2023 with all of you out there. I just sent out 4 scripts this morning just to give you, I do have some more content coming. You don't have to sit here and look at my ugly mug. All of 2023 coming on soon. I got another helicopter pilot, a former Special Forces officer, former Harvard grad turned Ranger, turned McKinsey and Company consultant, Chris Higgins. A lot of you probably know him. Former actor turned Ranger and serial entrepreneur, Joel Carpenter, who's a great dude who's got some great stories. And I got many other guests on the horizon. What I ask of you guys, if you have any guest recommendations or would even like to share your own story, your own lessons learned about life, parenting, work, career, education, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. You never know who it's going to impact or who's going to get something out of your story, because you've heard me say it on here before. Everybody has a story, and everybody's story will resonate with someone. And as I've also said on here, I believe completely in the power of one. And if you can make one domino fall, you might make multiple dominoes fall and help somebody out and change somebody's life. So thanks to everybody out there that's already connected me with people. That's how I get a lot of my guests. I get connected with past guests or people that I know. They connect me with somebody, and I really do appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to having more conversations and sharing those with you coming up this year. I need everyone's help to keep this thing going on. So this conversation I want to share, it was a conversation I had, we're all, for the past month, we've been with family since Thanksgiving, having family gatherings. And part of those gatherings is always, some sidebar conversations with family members and stuff. And I had one of those conversations with a family member over the Christmas holiday. And it really resonated with me because the person I was talking to doesn't have a military background, but is facing in his life some of the same, forks in the road, if you will, that we face in the military, right? And it really resonated with me, and I wanted to share it with you, and hopefully get some of y'all, the listeners' perspectives on what you think about it. Because what I'm going to discuss, I don't really think has a right or a wrong answer. It's just kind of the way life is, especially as you get older and you're married and you have kids and all that stuff. And it's the age old conversation of my time versus money and career advancement. Where do you strike that balance? And I was having this conversation. This person I know, he's very successful in what he does, right? He's in the consulting realm, which you guys know can be a very lucrative place to be, but he's definitely not maximizing his potential monetarily. Could do a lot more. There's join one of the big 5 consulting firms or whatever it is, but you could do more. But where he's at now, he has more balance. He has more control over his own calendar, and he has more control over his time. He's recently, fairly newly married, has their first child, and is able to give more time to the family, but is sacrificing, some career and monetary advancement, And he, like many people that I know on the military side, are at a fork in kind of the road, right? And I think we've all been there, especially the military, is, you come to many forks, that first 4 years or 3 years of your enlistment. Are you going to get out or stay in and keep going? And you get to the 10-year mark, and 10 and 12 years, a lot of guys and gals, they're married at this point. Some have kids. So you're deciding, am I going to stay in the military route, continue that and all the sacrifice that goes along with that? Or I'm going to transition out and do something else. And then if you look at like me, I stayed in, did my, over 20 years and decided to transition out instead of staying in and continuing, progressing in the military. And it is a tough decision to make, right? Because it's that time versus money and career advancement, like I said. And I think the best way to do it, right, is you break it down, right, and into its 2 things. You got time. So we all know we all have the same 24 hours in the day, and we're never going to get that time back once it's gone. With all my deployments and all the time I've spent gone, I missed 2 or 3 of my son's little league baseball seasons in a row. And I'll never get that back. And it's because I chose to stay in the military and stay in that career field and continue to provide, everything that comes with that, monetarily, the insurance, to the family. But I did sacrifice time and a lot of stuff with my kids, right? So it's a tough decision. And then if you look at the money and career advancement, money's not, they say it's the root of all evil, but depending on what profession you're in, if you go out there and you're making a lot of money and you're advancing in your career, you can provide more for your kids. The private baseball lessons, the private school, the ballet lessons, whatever it is, that money helps provide a different avenue, a different things for your family. But if you're chasing the money and you're chasing the career advancement, it's going to take, in most cases, depending on your career field, but in most cases, it's going to take your time, right? And it's a tough thing to balance, right? It's that we talk about it all the time on here, is what is work-life balance? How do you achieve work-life balance? I'm not sure there's such a thing as work-life balance. There's the pursuit of work-life balance, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. So when I was talking to him, he's asking me, I was gone a lot, for the early years of my kids. But, I wouldn't give up any of those deployments, any of that stuff I did, looking back. It's easy to say, yeah, I would give it up. But when I really sat down and think about it, I wouldn't change anything about my military career because it provided a certain lifestyle and opportunities for my family. I mean, we were never going to go live in Sydney, Australia, unless I was in the military. But that obviously, because I stayed in there and I chased not so much money in the military, but career advancement, it took my time from my wife and my kids and the rest of my family, right? So it's difficult, and it's the same thing on the civilian side. Do you go chase the next promotion, right? Do you go from being wherever you are to owning your own business, being an entrepreneur, which is going to take more of your time? It's going to take some of that money too. Or do you, in the corporate side, are you going to chase that next promotion and that next position? If you do, you're going to have to put in the work to outcompete the other people around you, but somebody's going to have to pay for it on the backside. And you have to decide what are you going to do? And we were talking a little bit, where do the kids factor in to this equation? And it didn't really dawn on me until I was talking to them. I think most of you know my parents are divorced. They divorced when I think I was 5 years old, 5 or 6. And I did the whole thing, summers with dad, back and forth on Christmases and holidays. And at the time, as a kid, I don't think I really realized exactly how much they were missing. My dad missed a lot of my basketball games, a lot of the sports functions and stuff, because where he lived and where I lived with my mom, he just wasn't there. And I didn't think about it too much in the moment because that's just the way things were. Same with my mom. I missed those Christmases with mom. I missed a lot of the summers with mom. I didn't think too much about it as a kid because that's just, that's the way it was. That's the way things worked. But now that I have my own kids, I now realize what they missed, right? Or what we missed together. And it's, looking back on that retrospectively, it's kind of a parenting style for me is, where would I have liked to have had my dad? Where would I have liked to have had my mom, right? Even though we couldn't avoid it, I can now, as my own parent, try to avoid some of those things with my own kids and my own family. And even with my parents' divorce is how do I avoid getting divorced, and falling into that statistic. So it's sticky. It's not pretty. It's messy, but I think it's just important to have these conversations, right? You have these conversations with your spouse, your significant other, your future spouse. And I think in some regards, I've said it before, we don't involve the kids in some of those conversations like we should. And it's, and they are way brighter than we could ever realize. I think most of you are familiar with the story of Jackson telling me that he was done with the military and that it was time for me to get out. And that was what changed everything for me. So involve them in the conversation. And when I think back to this family member I was having the conversation with, I was just so impressed with the maturity of his thought, of how he was seeking information so that he can make the best decision possible for him and his family, which I think is, I applaud him for that. And when you see somebody doing that and they're at a younger age, you just know that they're going to be most likely going to be successful in whatever they do and be good parents and husbands. But he was doing the exact right things. He was seeking counsel and guidance from people who've been there. And I think that's something that we should definitely do more of, especially as men, is reach out to people who've done it and gain their perspective. And that doesn't mean you have to agree with what they did or how they did it, but it's going to give you more information so you can make a better and more informed decision about your life, especially when it comes to time versus money and career advancement. And it comes at a cost, right? I got out of the military, and I made the decision not to go straight back into work, traditional work. I do some stuff on the side, but I'm in control of my calendar. I can, no one is telling me what to do except for me and my wife, which, if you're married, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but that's another podcast. But I have control of that. But with that, I'm definitely not maximizing my earning potential in my best years for earning, like 40 to 65. And that's not to say that I won't eventually, but the time is more important to me, right? I can look back and see everything my dad missed and my mom missed, and sacrifice being able to be there every afternoon when my kids get off the bus, getting up every morning, cooking them breakfast and helping them out the door, taking them to basketball practice, coaching for my daughter. That's more important to me now than financial gain. Now, what's the cost there is their coffers are not getting filled with college money, right? I got 4 kids. It's enough just to keep them fed on a weekly basis, but it's a sacrifice, right? And to be determined what the impacts of that are later. Hopefully, they will appreciate the time, especially when they have their own kids and they see, dad worked his butt off for 20 years, was gone all the time, but he was there when he could, when he had the opportunity to be there, he was there. And on the other side, for those that, are in a mid-career and they choose the money and career advancement, um, that's a great choice because you're filling those college funds, right? You're giving them more opportunity than they would have had you not. So it's a really tough thing, especially for parents and families. So it's just something that really resonated with me when we were talking, and it's something that we all go through multiple times in our lives. What we're going to do, I don't know what next year holds for me. I might go back and find a job and get back to working and lose some of that time. But while I can right now, time's the most important, and hopefully you can find a job or a career somewhere that can help you find the best of both. And the only way you can do that is by networking and talking to as many people as you can and gaining as much perspective as you can. And on that note, I hope for those of you out there listening that have been through this, get down there in the comments and tell us your lessons learned from it. Your pros and cons to both, because like I said, I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer, right? So let's be a little bit of a community, help each other out, and just have a little bit of a conversation there. So before we close out this truncated, shorter version of the podcast, I want to say, if you watch the podcast regularly, you met my good buddy, the Valhalla Cowboy, a few weeks ago. Yeah. Maybe I have too much time on my hands, right? I'm losing my mind. Some of you are probably definitely thinking that. Like, as I say this stuff out loud, and I know I'm going to put it out there on the internet, I feel kind of silly. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to do something good in a different venue than it's been done before and raise some awareness for veteran suicide and veteran mental health, which, regardless of what you think about me sitting around playing Call of Duty for 24 hours, as my wife says, that's just kind of weird, I concur, right? It's kind of weird when I put on a wig and a cape and do that. I mean, I don't do it. The cowboy does it. But if you're so inclined to donate $1 or $2, go to Leading with Vulnerability Patreon page. Give us a donation, and everything from now, from January 1st through the end of March is going to go to that veteran nonprofit, which I'm really close to the partnering with there, and we'll hopefully announce soon. So hopefully just do a little bit of good in a humorous and different, with a humorous and different approach. And for all those out there that know me, no, I'm not losing my mind. I just enjoy creating and trying to entertain people and make people laugh, because I think it's the best medicine, as I said before. So again, thanks to all you guys out there, all you guys and gals and kids in some regards. I got some loyal kid listeners, which I think is awesome. Thanks for everything. I look forward to 2023. Stay vulnerable, and we'll catch you on the next episode.